All right, so we just started this paragraph of this minor, 5 lines into this second paragraph on page Beis. And the principle that we went into is the Ayin that Odom, Nasa Odom b'tzalmenikid musein, that in Odom there are two aspects. One is called Tzalmenu, Tzelem, and the other one is called the Mus. And he translates in a very superficial manner that Tzelem is what's called Tzuro Atzmis. Both of these, Tzelem and Mus, are both a Tzura. Tzura means a form. We discussed yesterday that the union of the Elokus that comes in the creation, even in Odom Orishin, it's not the essence of Elokus. This is the way Elokus manifests itself. And this is called a Tzura. And in Tzura there are these two levels. It's called Tzelem, which is called Tzura Atzmis, and then Tzura Mitzura, Tzura from the Tzura. We never went beyond that yesterday. Now we started.
The Mus is Tzura Mitzura.
What?
The Mus is Tzura
Mitzura.
Which is a form in a form, is what it means?
Right. Now, we started to introduce the concept of Tzura Atzmis. And what we said was that we have the Nefesh HaOdom. We explained that the Nefesh, the Neshama, and the Guf are in a totally different categories. There is no bridging in the categories. Even when the Neshama is mislabish in the Guf, it is not that the Guf becomes Neshama. There's no way the Guf is not Neshama. Except the Guf accommodates and receives the Neshama in a manner that allows the Neshama to function at the Guf level. Like we said, intelligence is a Neshama element, even after his lapsus. But it's taking place in the brain, and therefore he's able to understand and to apply intelligence to things that the brain can relate to physical things. But it's a Neshama element. It remains a Neshama element. And to clarify this, we've always mentioned the phenomenon that the human being is on the earth, but is not into the earth. He remains independent. He stands on 2 feet, which earth-wise does not fit. It's not a natural stand from earth perspective. So he stands because of his neshama. But he stands on the earth, and therefore he's able to function on the earth. So then, if this is the case, so we ask the question, why does the neshama require a goof of a certain form? Since that they're in 2 different categories, and the fact that the neshama is slavish in the goof is a miracle in itself. As a matter of fact, it's in Shulchan Aruch, it explains what is the meaning of the bracha. And what's the pella or mafli lasos? The pella is that the neshama functions in the group as a pella. It remains a godly miracle. So if this is a godly miracle, so what's the difference what the goof looks like? What kind of goof it is? Why can the neshama be in slavish in a goof habhema and function? You say, no, it cannot. Because the explanation, again, in a quick way, in direct way, because despite the fact that the neshama and the guf that the guf is only a tzura, but this is the tzura that's called the tzura atzmus. It's a tzura that represents what neshama is on a tzura level. This is what the guf ha'adam lends itself to this type of thing. Just briefly, we can't go into this too far. The uniqueness of the human being is that the brain, this little organ, the brain, this is the nerve center of the entire edifice. Edifice. And everything within that edifice is so totally subservient to the brain and operates exclusively on brain direction. The structure, the human structure itself, just the physical structure, indicates this. The head is above and everything else is below. The head is the smallest part, and especially the brain is really infinitesimal in comparison to everything else. That is the principle of the human being. In other words, the principle of the human being is what's above him. Where does he come from? What does he stand for? Why is he here? Not what's here. Why is he here? This is the human being. That is what neshama is. So nefesh, like nefesh, represents elokut, represents its source, and that's what the neshama can be established in the guf that fits that tzura. Even though this is only a tzura. But the tzura atzmi is a tzura that represents what neshama, what nefesh ha'adam is. So a tzura, we have to understand, is only a chitzonius, like you think, it's only an appearance, only a form. But there is such a thing that's called a tzura atzmis. It means tzura atzmis, in the form that we would translate it, would be like this. The neshama is not tzura, the neshama is an atzmi. The tzura atzmis is that should that atzmi be translated in the tzura, this is the tzura that we take.
I just remember from, it sounds like the group is like oisis aksav. It does represent something that could be chakuk. It's something inherent in the cloth. But it's something foreign. It's of ink, which is foreign to the cloth. And we're saying that there's no bridge between the neshama and the guf. But on the guf level, what the neshama is represented. It sounds like it doesn't sound like a tzura that's of and part and parcel of the etzem.
It's not part and parcel of the Yasam. The Neshama doesn't need Eishes Aksav. How does the Neshama relate to Eishes Aksav? It's all accommodation. It's like Mafli Lasis. It's all because of the Shlichus. The Neshama Shadatzmi doesn't need Eishes Aksav. The Neshama doesn't need Oisis for itself. Oisis is only to represent something, but it is the essence. Doesn't need to represent.
I think I'm not confused. Is this what you were...
No, one second. Let me stop you right. We're just beginning into this. We're just introducing terminology, okay? I just don't want to skip. I want to explain the significance of the word tzura atzmis. He's going to explain what it is. But what does it mean tzura atzmis? Where is the neshama get the tzura atzmis? It's not tzura. Neshama is an atzmi. So one way for us to relate to this concept is in the fact that the neshama has these requirements. That should the neshama be nisgala, it would need to be that type of form.
Would need that type of form.
That form. The neshama doesn't need to be nisgala. Doesn't need a tzur.
And in fact, it takes different gilgulim means different suras.
No, the Ningulim is where the neshama. What do you mean? I was like, explain what do you mean Ningulim? Different human beings.
It seems like one neshama comes into different bodies at different times.
But these are all human bodies.
Okay.
We're not talking about this particular person.
So this human form, not this.
This human form,
particular
right?
Human being.
That's right. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that a Beinani, who can never, essentially, because he's a Beinani, and therefore through his own ability, he cannot reach a Madriga of Tzaddik. He says, nonetheless, he should do his what he can. And then Ulay, maybe a nitzes of a tzaddik will be nisaber in him, in his neshama, and enable him to elevate to madriga of a tzaddik. So when the neshama of a tzaddik will be nisaber in neshama in a nefesh, or adam in nefesh or beinani, that's functional. But to the neshama mitzrabish in guf habhema, Rahman Hassan, that is the most painful thing. It cannot function. Right. Enough. All I wanted is that we should understand the concept of tzura atzmis. The neshama is not tzura. How does it have a tzura atzmis? Tzura atzmis means the essential tzura, but it doesn't have a tzura in the essence in the first place. Tzura is not essential for it. How can it be an essential tzura? This is all I wanted to maybe should understand. So the tzura, the tzelem is tzura atzmis, the essential tzura, and the mus is a likeness, which means tzura mitzura. Like for example, the guf itself. The guf itself is reminiscent of what the neshama is. But if you approach a human being not from understanding his neshama, understanding his guf, you're not talking about the real person. You're talking about tzura mitzura. You're talking about his appearance only. Okay, this is now going to be discussed further.
Just on that point, the Tzura Atzmi, as you're saying, is the human form of Klal, just he walks upright, and the way the Klal, he's in a form of a human being that's perfect keli for the neshama. If it was going to be mislavish, but the Tzura Mitzura you were describing as looking at the individual person's form, I just didn't get the distinction. Because before you were also talking about the group Ha'adam, and talking about that as being the form of a human being, being a Tzura Atzmi.
Yeah, well, the real explanation is still coming, not to leave you in confusion. We always mention this principle, that you have to act in a certain way. You have to eat in a certain way. This eating in a certain way consists of two things. Number one, it is convenient. And the human being is supposed to do things apiseichel that is convenient. Then there's another level. This is a human way of doing things.
So the tzura mitzura is the convenient part.
It's convenience part. What is the human element? Once we get into this, there's a convenient eating. But then there is a much deeper one. That when a human being eats, just as when he stands on the ground, he remains independent of the ground. When he eats, he remains independent of the eating. He is doing something intentionally. He's not roishe v'ruba into it. He's not eating with his face into the plate. He is serving himself the food. And when he serves himself the food, it's bite by bite. This is the human element in that particular activity. The Rebbe never ate with both hands. One hand was always out. Even a piece of chicken, he would pick it off with this fork. Both hands into eating.
Very Yom Kippur.
What? Aaron Kippur, okay. The Kohanim ate korbanos, they ate with both hands.
Now, how did he do the chicken?
Yeah, pick it up.
With one fork?
Reb Mendel, I don't know if you remember Reb Mendel. Anybody remember Reb Mendel? Reb Mendel he is the original Atwotsker in Gilad. He was the Rosh Hashiva over here in 770 for many, many years. He was the Sar HaMashkin. He would pour the Rebbe's cup all the years. So when the Rebbe would give him l'chaim, he would drink it like this. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Being in Tzura Atzmis home. The union of the Tzura Atzmis. What is Mshat Tzura Atzmis? As we said, it seems to be kind of incongruent. I'm saying if it's Etzem, it's not Tzura. It says no. There is such thing as Tzura Atzmis. It is Shehatzura hi be'etzem hadover u'mahusoy. The tzura is within the etzem of the thing, and it is in the very mahus of that thing. We already discussed in the past the meaning of the word mahusoi, mahus. And I'm not going into it again. You can refer back to when we discussed it. But the translation of the word mahus is, what does it stand for? Mahu, what is it? How come the Rebbeishter made it? With mahus. The tzura is in the mahus. What? How come it's here? What is its function? Not what is its function from a human perspective, but what is its function from the Meibusher's perspective. V'hinei. To explain this, Kol tzura hi bechinas gilui. Any tzura, a form, is the aspect of gilui, the aspect of revelation. What's meant revelation? Expression. It is not the essence as it is unto itself. It is the presentation of the essence. Ukenoida, Kenoida be'inyan chomer v'tzura. So we're going in slightly into different arena, but to explain the inyan from tzura.
I'm sorry, I just can't find the place. Can you?
Yeah, easily. It's right now it is 7 lines from the beginning of that second paragraph on page Beis.
Okay.
K'nei de binyan chomer v'tzura. Tzura is bechinas gil. What do we mean by tzura is bechinas gil? As is discussed when we explain the inyan of chomer and tzura. To translate the word chomer and tzura in our terminology, our coarse manner, the only way we know how to do that. Chomer means immaterial, and tzura means the form. So, in that arena, we say that the chomer hu ho'atzmi v'hapshitu shel hadover. That the chomer, this is the essence and the pshitus shel hadover. Pshitus means the reality in itself. Before it is even defined, it doesn't need to be defined because it is real in and of itself. It's in pshitus hadover. This is called the chomer. V'hatzura, and the tzura is galus hadover. Tzura, this is where this thing is nisgala and is fully expressed. And in our muscle for this is, I just want to remind everyone, a muscle is bringing out a higher concept on a lower level. It is accurate, but we should not project that on a higher level there are these same forms and these same contours. So the most of that we always use is that if you have an apartment, if you have a home, within the home there are many rooms, and each room, by design and by position and location and so forth, bears the significance of what that room will be used for. It's not just plain neutral space. It is neutral space. You can do anything you want with it. But what are you going to do with it? That which there is a pshitus element for what that stands for. Like we say, the reason that there's a dining room in a dining room set in a dining room is because it's a dining room, not because it is a dining room set. The dining room set does not make it into a dining room per se. If you take the dining room set, put it into a bedroom, it will be a dining room set, but it's not going to be a dining room. And as we explained, that if a person sits in a dining room, in the room is so situated and so constructed that it is meant for a dining room. It has a pshitus element. Then, and that there's a table in it, then the table and the room coincide. They're congruent. And you feel everything is fits. But if it's put elsewhere, so because in our physical world you can move the table anywhere as you want, but it's incongruent. And a sensitive human being will say, hey, this is out of place. So practically speaking, it doesn't make a difference, but from a human perspective, it makes a difference. From sensitivity's perspective. So therefore, the chomer has a very profound significance in the tzura. In our example, the tzura comes from elsewhere. You bring it into the dining room. But once you bring it in, they coincide perfectly, and the chomer has a lot effect, has a big effect on the tzura. As a matter of fact, let's take it a step further. Should the dining room table break, this remains a dining room. You will take the broken pieces out and replace it with another. This is not the real thing. The real thing is the dining room, not the dining room set.
And here the room is standing for chomer.
Yeah, this is like the chomer.
This is where we came into this by saying every form, every tzura is an expression of the atzmi, and then we went.
No, not an expression of the atzmi. It's expression. It's a gilui.
It's a gilui, a presentation of
And
something more atzmi than itself, something more.
Right.
Right, and then from here we go to Knoida B'inyan Choyim of Tzura, the Choyim hu atzmi.
Chomer hu ho'atzmi v'hapshitus shel hadom.
Right. Going from the Tzura is the presentation of something more essential, and then we coming to say the Chomer is the Pshitus. Chomer in usual is Chumrius, but here it's standing for something more atzmi.
All right. We already went through this last time around.
I don't think I got
Before
it there,
Shavuos. No, it's how you say it. Okay, so I understand exactly where you're coming from, and okay, let me explain to you what this is. The going back even to our example of the dining room and dining room table. Okay. Now think about this. There's a dining room table, there's a dinette table. They both serve as a table. And yet you say the dinette table belongs to the dinette, and the dining room table belongs to the dining room. Why? Because this decor and this location in order to capture the significance of this room, there has to be a dining room table. This is not just an available space. It stands for something. In order to capture that significance, there has to be a dining room table. A dinette table will not capture it.
So here, this space is the chomer that's calling for the gilui, this particular tzura.
That's right.
How is it that we're saying space is chomer? Why isn't space just more the mashal from something more atzmi? Why chumrius?
No, chomer. the chomer is what demands the gilui.
And here the chomer is
the terminology chumrius is only a mashal, because in our world, in order to do something, you have to have the chomer. But the chomer, let's take it to a slightly different. Even a dining room table, it's also a good example. Let's take it in a different arena. Let's say gold and a gold band. You can make a band from a piece of elastic, a rubber band, and you can make a band, a finger band from gold. Elastic is not meant to be worn on a finger. The gold band represents and brings out the richness of gold. That's what it's about.
Wait, the hand, like the room, calls for gold, not plastic.
No, the band calls for gold. What is the idea of a band? To decorate. It's not only the form that decorates, it's the material that decorates. Material in a certain form.
Isn't it that the gold calls for the band? In other words, to capture the significance of gold, it calls for the band, or that's not the...
In a sense, yes, but not necessarily, because you can make many things from the gold.
Right.
But when you make a band out of it, yes, it speaks for the gold. Because you wouldn't make a band out of a piece of aluminum. Still have a difficulty?
I think so.
The chomer fits the tzura, or the tzura fits the chomer. The tzura is the revelation of what is contained in that chomer. The chomer is the pshitus of that thing.
I always think of the tzura being a revelation of what was in that atzmi. Here we're saying it's the revelation of what's in that chomer.
The chomer is the atzmi of that tzura.
Why is the chomer the atzmi? Surely there's something more atzmi than chomer. Chomer sounds like material to me. Gold, the room. The only reason you have these things is because there's something more atzmi.
Again, you have to, in a mashal, you have to step down to the place of the mashal. There's no material in the brain. If there were no gold, would there be a gold band? Would there be the concept of a gold band?
So the fact that there's this metal that will not tarnish is what brings out the gold.
That's right.
The gold ring.
The Gemara says that gold is bichlal not fit for the world. Okay, we have to interrupt in the middle of this most engaging conversation, and we will continue with him tomorrow. Have a good day.
Assuming that the dining room table breaks, you bring another one in. This was the exact Inyan in the marriage classes yesterday, with the marriage itself as a whole entity, and versus building it from the ground up. You have a whole entity. And
That's right.
Binyan Adiyat.